Thank you very much, Tom, for your kind words. And I want, first of all, to acknowledge and thank His Excellency, Archbishop Christophe Pierre, and for his presence. And his presence also and always reminds us and puts the Holy Father in our hearts and in our prayers. And I want also, thank you, for the Holy Father, And I also want to thank Bishop Dorsenville for being here with us tonight. And I want to thank our dinner chairman, Mr. Pat Cipollone, Mr. Leonard Leo, and Mr. Tom Iannucci, and our generous new Evangelization Circle sponsors, the Papal Foundation, the Supreme Council of the Knights of Columbus, Mr. Sean Filer, chairman of the American Principles Project, Mr. Pat Cipollone and his family, Mr. and Mrs. Tom and Lisa Iannucci and their family, the Kirkland and Ellis Foundation, and thank you for your generous support, and many thanks to all our sponsors and to all of you for being here tonight with us. 2 or 3 months into my arrival in DC last year, Father Arnie had been declining by then, and then he told me one day, "Charles, my office is yours. Let me just take some things, a few things," and this is what he did. He grabbed some things, and he left. And I was, what? What's going on here? So that was his last day at the CIC. And I was the following day I was sitting at his office chair, and I was thinking, and now what? What do I do? And it came to my mind the thought of opening his drawers at his office, typical thought that comes to your mind when you don't know what to do. And I opened the drawer, one of the drawers, and I was thinking, maybe I find his diary, his thoughts of the last decade, at the CIC. You know what I found? I found a screwdriver. A measuring tape. Okay, I found a wireless doorbell. A magnifying glass. This is what he had in his drawer. He loved to fix things. He loved it. We have been talking about the intellectual matters before, right? He also was very much, touching ground. And once when he was in hospice care, I asked him I wanted to visit with him. And he told me, "Charles, come this afternoon, but late afternoon, because I'm going to be very busy." So sure enough, I arrived early. And I found Father Arnie fixing an electrical outlet. He had been fixing it for hours. And this is what he did with people, with souls. He would always help them to go along in their spiritual path. He would never give up on anyone, no matter how complicated the situation would be, or the difficulties, or whatever. He was such a great priest. He was Christ. Now, here is another story. Almost 2 years ago, well before I was asked to consider coming to DC, I ran into Father Arnie in Chicago. I had met him sometimes here and there. And then we started talking. And at some point, out of nowhere, he asked me, Charles, how do you like the DC weather? How do you like its architecture? You're an architect. How do you like it? How do you like the intellectual atmosphere of Washington, D.C.? And I thought it an odd question. I thought I didn't know what he was talking about. But what I noticed is that he has a twinkle in his eye. And I later learned that meant that he had always something in store. He was always the force behind the moving parts. And I have seen this at the CIC. There are so many aspects to the CIC. We have the bookstore, wonderful books that are sold there. And the other day, someone approached me. He's a convert from atheism, and he's now an activist, and he's trying to defend the Christians in the Middle East, and he has done so much also for the pro-life cause in the US. He's a filmmaker, and he was telling me how his conversion came from entering the CIC. One day he was in Washington, D.C., and he bought some books. And he started reading, and eventually he started to wonder and to think and to meet there at the CAC with the director. And then he converted, and he's doing wonderful things. And also we have all the book events and the Leonine Forum, right? We have so many things at the CIC, and Father Arnie was always behind this. He had twinkles in his eyes all the time, right? He loved for the sacraments. He spent many hours at the CIC in the confessional, giving spiritual direction, and that was his life, and I witnessed that in this last year, helping him, being at his side at the CIC. Many people have approached me with their stories. I cannot tell you all of them. As Tom Janucci was mentioning, he told me, Charles, these have been probably the best 10 years of my life. And this is the legacy I have received. This is the legacy we have received. And this is the legacy we all intend at the CIC to continue to develop both in intensity and in extension. The CIC has an amazing team that work with dedication, with intensity, with professionalism, with a great sense of mission, and I am very grateful for all of them. And the CIC also has touched so many souls in Washington, D.C. and around the whole country. And also I am a witness to this. In this year I have been here, so many people approaching me. And I am very excited to have been given the opportunity of being the director of the CIC. And finally, I want to thank Cardinal Wuerl, the corporate board, that's my Spanish background. And also the board of directors, the current members, the ones who have served in the past, some of them present here today at this dinner, and the new board members to come. All of them all of them represented here by our chairman, Mr. Tom Janucci, and they have been extraordinary in advancing, supporting, and spreading the mission of the CIC. And a final thanks to all of you for your support and your generosity. May God bless you.